Today we are starting our unit that's going to talk about the pioneers. So the pioneers, as in the ones who settled Utah. In order to understand who they are, where they came from, why they picked Utah to settle, we're going to have to go back and understand like the beginnings of their church in order to do that. So a couple of things we need to talk about before we get to that point. One is the separation of church and state. So we hear that all the time, separation of church and state. But we need to understand what that really means because we're about to learn about a religion. Does it mean that I cannot teach you about a religion? No, it doesn't. Not even a little bit. In fact, out of all the classes that I've taught in my teaching career, I've taught all of the major ones and probably 10 to 15 side religions. I can teach you religion. What I cannot do is preach you religion. That's where there can't be anything happening. So, for example, if I was going to be teaching you about Buddhism, I can tell you about their 5 pillars of truth. I can tell you about what they do and how they worship. What I cannot do is say, this is how you correctly worship. This is the only true religion that there is. You must follow these steps if you want the outcome that you want. If you want salvation, if you want nirvana, in that example. I cannot, when we're talking about the Mormons, I can tell you what happened. Joseph Smith said he saw God in his son. What I cannot say is, I know with all my heart that this is true and this is the only true church. Okay, those are not things that I can say in this capacity in any way. And I want you guys to be very aware of this because I do not want you talking in that way in any capacity in this setting. You may be Mormon, you may not be Mormon. I don't care. I don't care either way. What I expect from you is to be respectful. We don't put down anyone's religion, whether you agree with it or not. Second of all, I expect you to talk about it in a secular manner. I don't want to hear, I believe with all my heart. I know that this is true. This is the only true church. Kate, those are things that I do not want to hear or see written out in any assignment. You can say factually what happened. So Joseph Smith said that he got gold plates from an angel and translated it into a book of scripture. Okay? You can't turn it into like a testimony or anything resembling that. Okay, so that's the separation between church and state. You won't see me cross that line, and I want you guys to practice the same thing. There's a place where it's appropriate to express those kind of feelings, and it's anywhere outside of a classroom assignment setting, okay? So keep that in mind. Next, I know I'm going to have a handful of you going, don't call them Mormons. We don't like to be called Mormons because a lot of our population is part of this group. It's just the dynamics that we live in here in this valley. There's a really high percentage of people who are Mormons. I know, and I know that they know that that's not the preferred name anymore. They don't want to be called Mormons. They want to be called members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. First of all, that's a mouthful for what I'm trying to accomplish today. Second of all, it is not historically appropriate to go back and change names because we disagree with them now. So I'm not going to go back and change what we call the Mormons because that's what they were called then. So that's how I'm going to refer to them. So on your assignments, you can type out Mormon and it will be 100% okay. In fact, that's preferred because that's what they were known at that time. You do not have to write out and type out the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints instead of Mormons every single time. You just don't have to. Again, different capacities. So now that that's out of the way, make sure that you're really respectful. If you're unsure, just ask me first and we'll be all set. If you're trying your best and you're trying to be respectful, we won't have any issues. Okay, so like I said, in order to understand why people came to Utah, why this group specifically came to Utah, we have to understand the religion and what happened to them to get them to that point. So let's start off in New York. in New York, it's the year 1820. There is this thing going on. It's called the Second Great Awakening. Okay, the Second Great Awakening. What this is it's like the people all of a sudden remember that religion exists and it becomes like their obsession. Do you guys remember a couple years ago with the dab? It's like the dab, okay? Everyone's obsessed with it, but they need to figure out the right way to do it, the right religion to follow, who's interpreting the Bible correctly, all of that. So what there is this, there's religions popped up all over the place. There's people fighting about which one's correct, which one's incorrect. And there's just this common knowledge that if you don't belong to a religion, if you don't do X, Y, and Z according to whatever priest or pastor you're following, you will end up in hell. And that is like the scariest thought that they could think of. So everyone's trying to figure out what religion to go to. Then comes in this 14-year-old boy. His name's Joseph Smith. And he can't figure out what church he wants to go to. So what he does, according to him, is he's like, I'm going to ask God myself. He goes into a forest. He kneels down to pray. He asks God which church is true. That's when, according to his story, God and his son, Jesus Christ, come down and visit him and tell him, none of the churches are true. I need you to start your own church. That's according to him. Now, another common thing we're going to run into here when we're talking about the Mormons is that there's going to be a lot of hate towards these Mormons. There is not a lot of reason why, except for just they all kind of hate them. Okay, so they kind of get this raw deal all the time, and it's going to set them up for what leads them into Utah and how they handle things once they get out to Utah. So this is going to be a recurring theme that we're going to talk about for like the next long time. Okay, so then comes 1830. By the time 1830 happens, a couple of things have gone down. One, Joseph Smith said that another angel came to him, said, here, I'm going to give you these gold plates. There is scripture engraved on them, and you are going to translate them so that your people can have this new scripture. Okay, so it's like the Bible, but a second version of it. So by 1830, the Book of Mormon, which is what they call it, has now been translated and is now published. So now they have this new church, this new book of scripture, and there's a lot of people who follow them. So besides all of the huge amounts of people who hate him, there's a lot of people who believe him. And so they start to follow his church. Okay? All those people who don't hate him, they don't just like quietly hate him and let him be and let him do his own thing. It's the kind of hate where you can't stop thinking about it and they won't stop bugging him. So they persecute him and persecute him and persecute him to the point where he's like, you know what? We need to leave. And so they leave. So the first stop that they're at is in New York. So make sure you have number 1, New York, so that you know the first spot that they're at. After they go to New York and they decide that they have to leave, they go to this place called Kirtland, Ohio. When they are in here, they actually build the city of Kirtland. So they kind of go into their own little place and they build up the city. They're here from 1832 to 1837. Now, when they're here, they're not just like quietly keeping to themselves. They're talking about it to other people. They're introducing people to this thing that they just can't get enough of. And so they have more and more people who are joining their church. Once they are here, they build a temple. So I want you to put this by Kirtland, that they build a temple in Ohio. That's what you're seeing up on your screen. They build a temple as it's like a step up from a church where they worship and do their most sacred religious rites. Okay, so when I say rites, R-I-T-E-S, it's like, what's another word for rites? Ceremonies. So where they perform like religious ceremonies. There's the word I'm looking for. Okay, after they go here, they are not left alone. So people are still hating on them. So even though there are people who are joining their church and their total numbers are getting bigger, there's also people who just hate them. Okay? And we're talking the active hate you. So the picture in the top corner, what you're seeing, again, that word persecution. So persecution is when you are attacked for your religious belief. Okay, that's something we're going to talk about for a long time too. So persecution is being attacked for your religious belief. So what you're seeing there in that top picture is they would do this to Joseph Smith. This happened to him multiple times. This occasion, they pulled him out of his house, they ripped his shirt off, they poured on hot tar, and then they dumped feathers on him. Okay, let's talk about what that does. When someone pours tar on you, it's not like paint where it eventually just comes off and you just have to be patient. Tar does not come off of you. The only way it comes off is if you pull it off. And if you pull it off, it takes off a layer of skin. So I want you to think for a second if you have ever skinned your hand or your knee or something like that, and how it's red and it doesn't really scab over, but it just hurts. And if you use hand sanitizer like a paper cut, it burns the tar out of it. No pun intended there. But that's what happens to his whole entire body. Okay, and then the feathers on top is only because they wanted him to look ridiculous. So that is what's going on with the tar and feathering. It became so bad that they're like, you know what? This is ridiculous. We are leaving. So they decided again to leave. Now, the biggest difference between leaving Kirtland, Ohio and leaving New York is now they have this temple and they put so much time and effort and money into this temple, and now they just have to leave it behind. So that was something that was a really sore, tender, hard thing for them to do. What happened to this temple is going to kind of set the scene for actions that they have even 50 to 100 years from this point, and actions they take at that point. And that is what happens to the temple. So they come in and the mobs come, and what they end up doing is they take it over. So they come in, they gut it, they graffiti it, they do whatever they want. Now, think about it from the Mormons' perspective. If someone came into your most holy place, took it over, said it was now theirs, vandalized it, did all of that stuff, would it still be considered a holy building? Probably not so much, but it is going to be something that they would mourn because they put so much time and effort into it. Okay, so next they go to Missouri. So Missouri is the third place that they go to. While they are here, same type of things happen. Their numbers grow, but people still avidly hate them. Now they're getting to the point with their numbers that they are starting to really make a difference when it comes to voting. So when we're talking about what's going on in the next couple of spots that they go, you have to understand that now all of a sudden they're starting to have political power. If they are all thinking the same way and they all have the same viewpoints, when they go to vote to put people into power, they have the ability to almost vote as one and put that person into power. Now, that could be someone that is not Mormon, or heaven forbid, one of them run for a position of power and then they all vote that person in. So really what it comes down to is being scared of the unknown. This is a new group of people. They show up here. No one really has any idea what they're going to do, but they're all super tight-knit. And so it's just kind of this scary unknown. You'll see other examples of this throughout history when groups come together. When you talk about, you guys will have ancient world history, and you'll start talking about after the Romans and stuff, you'll start talking about the Jews. This is another group of people that's just really tight knit, and they have the same problem. Okay, people just persecute the crap out of them. Okay, so when we're in Missouri, the guy on the bottom, his name is Lilburn Boggs. Governor Lilburn Boggs. You need to remember his name. What he does is he signs an extermination order, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It is now legal for anyone to kill a Mormon. Let me say that one more time. This governor made it legal to kill someone because of their religion. I just want you to let that sink in for a minute. The Constitution has not changed, and he made it legal for Mormons to be killed.